Today's objective is today we'll build my fluency and say goodbye to robot reading by scooping words together in larger phrases. Now, tap your head if you remember learning about the word fluency or reading fluency yesterday. Great. Now, if you do remember, maybe you can try to recall what the phrase reading fluency means. If you have an idea, go ahead and show me thumbs up. If you can't quite remember, show me thumbs down. And if you kind of remember, go ahead and show me thumbs in the middle. Great. Well, if you don't remember, that's okay, because here's the definition of reading fluency. Reading fluency just refers to your ability to read smoothly, sounding just like you do when you talk. Yesterday, you learned a strategy to help you build your fluency called reread, reread, reread. And we talked about how that's a really important fluency strategy because when we reread the same text many times, it helps us build things in like expression and accuracy. And that's really important to go from bumpy reading to smooth, accurate reading. So today we're going to be learning a strategy that's going to build off of what you learned yesterday, and it's called scooping words into phrases. Now you're probably wondering, Miss Garcia, how do I scoop words into longer phrases? Well, instead of reading word by word like a robot, it's important to try to read a few words all together. And this is called a phrase. So scooping up more words at a time is easy to do if you pay close attention to the punctuation that the author has included in the text. But sometimes authors don't include much punctuation in a sentence, so you also always have to check that your reading sounds right. So I'm going to model how to use this strategy, and then you'll get to do some practice with it today. On your screen, you're seeing the next page in our mentor text, Island Born, and I'm going to use this page to model how to scoop words into phrases, and specifically I'm going to show you how to use punctuation to guide you. So follow along on your screens as I read aloud. It was the most dreadful monster anyone had ever seen. Period. Periods tell me to take a pause. The whole island was terrified and no one could defeat it. Period. Again, I'm going to take a pause. It was just too strong. Period. Again, I pause. For 30 years, the monster did as it pleased. Period. Again, I pause. It could destroy an entire town with a single word and make a whole family disappear simply by looking at it. Period. Lola's hair was uncurling with fear. Period. Did you see the monster? Question mark. Yes. All the time. Were you scared? Question mark. Now notice, when I read, were you scared? My voice went up at the end of the sentence, and that's because when we ask questions, our voices tend to go up at the end of our sentences. We were all very scared, period. Now, I also noticed that there are some quotation marks around sentences, so I would want to pay attention to those too because that tells me that a character is talking. That's dialogue that's happening in the story. So that's also something I would want to pay attention to as I'm choosing how to read a text. The first read through of this text went okay. I did use the punctuation to guide my reading. So for example, anytime I got to a period, I paused and I took a breath before I moved on to the next sentence. Or when I got to a question mark, I did use that punctuation to remind myself that my voice should go up at the end because it was a question. But one thing I didn't do is I didn't pay attention to the mood of the story or the feelings of the characters. So I have to go back a second time and I have to reread, and I'm going to continue to scoop my words into phrases, but this time I'm also going to think about what is the mood of the story or what feelings might the characters be having. Now, when I look at this page, I can see the huge monster being described in the right-hand corner, and I can also see lots of people running away, and they look scared and worried, and it looks like they're trying to escape. So, based on the picture, and also based on the 2 pages that I've read so far, I get the sense that this is kind of a serious part in the story. So, I'm going to make my voice match that feeling while also paying attention this time to the punctuation. Listen closely and follow along. It was the most dreadful monster anyone had ever seen. The whole island was terrified and no one could defeat it. It was just too strong. For 30 years, the monster did as it pleased. It could destroy an entire town with a single word and make a whole family disappear simply by looking at it. Lola's curly hair was uncurling with fear. Did you see the monster, Mr. Muir? Yes, all the time. Were you scared? We were all very scared. Now, I'm pretty pleased with how that second read-through went because I definitely used punctuation to help guide my reading. So, for example, anytime that I saw a period again, I paused and I took a breath before moving forward. If there was a question mark, I phrased that sentence as a question, so I made my voice go up. And I also this time used what was happening in the story to guide my reading voice. And since I decided that it was kind of a serious part of the book, I tried to use my voice to match those feelings. But I did notice a couple of sentences that were so long and they didn't have any punctuation until the very end, and it made it kind of tricky for me to know exactly how to read it and exactly how to scoop the words into phrases. So I'm going to model in the next part of the video how to take sentences that feel very long, even though they might not look like they have that many words, but they might feel very long, like you get out of breath as you're reading them. And I'm going to show you how to scoop them into phrases in a way that sounds right. On the screen now, you're seeing the same text that we just read together, except I've gone back and I've highlighted the sentences that felt really long the first time I read them through because there wasn't any punctuation until the very end. So I didn't get to take a pause until the very end of the sentence. Now, as I'm reading, I want for you to listen to the large scoop in the way that it's written right now. And I want for you to think about, does that sound right? The whole island was terrified and no one could defeat it. Whoa, that sounded really rushed and it felt really rushed. But I didn't have a period until the end, so I couldn't pause until the end? Isn't that right? No, that just means that this is a sentence where I need to scoop some of the words together. So I have to think about what sounds right. So let me look at this sentence closely. Would it sound right if I said, the whole island was terrified and no one could defeat it? Those were smaller scoops. No, that didn't sound quite right. I need to put words together that fit together, kind of like a puzzle. Let me try again. The whole island was terrified and no one could defeat it. Whoa, that sounded way better. Okay, so even though there isn't a comma before and, I'm going to scoop that first part all together, and then everything from the word and to the period is my second scoop. So I'll reread that for you one more time. The whole island was terrified, and no one could defeat it. That sounds way better. Now, let's zoom in on that second sentence that's highlighted also. This one was a long one, and I remember the first time I read this text, I got really out of breath. So this is what it sounds like without any punctuation until the very end. It could destroy an entire town with a single word and make a whole family disappear simply by looking at it. Boy, that was hard to read all at once. So, just like I did with the last sentence, I need to think about which words could be broken into smaller scoops and also still make sense and fit together like a puzzle. Let me try it. It could destroy an entire town with a single word and make a whole family disappear simply by looking at it. That was kind of hard to understand the way that I chunked those words together. So I think I need to go back because it didn't quite sound right. I'm going to try again. It could destroy an entire town with a single word and make a whole family disappear simply by looking at it. Wow, that sounded way better. So one thing I'm noticing is that if there's the word and, even though there's not a comma in front of the word and is kind of like a clue to pause and take a breath, especially in the middle of a sentence where there isn't any punctuation and you don't get to take a breath until the very end. So, and is definitely a clue that sort of acts like a comma. So I pause. Let me try one more time. It could destroy an entire town with a single word and make a whole family disappear simply by looking at it. That sounds much better. And it was really easy for me to understand or comprehend what was happening in that part of the story. So today you're going to head to Google Classroom for your assignment. But you're not going to turn anything into me. You're going to set your timer for 25 minutes. You get to choose a book that you enjoy. And all you're doing is you're practicing building your fluency. And you're going to practice today scooping words into phrases to help you read more fluently. So remember to use punctuation as your clues. If there's a period, pause before you keep going. If there's a question mark, make your voice go up. If there's an exclamation, remember to say it in an excited way. If there are quotation marks, you could use a special voice for that character. If there's a comma, remember to take a pause, a breath, and then keep going. Remember to also use mood and character feelings to guide your reading voice. So think about what's happening in the story, and is it sad? Then use a sad voice. Is it exciting? Use an exciting voice. If someone is angry, you might use an angry voice, and so on. If there's no punctuation until the end of a sentence, remember that you need to make smaller scoops of words that sound right, and then you get to take a breath and then keep going. So I will be listening to you model some of this scooping in office hours today or on Thursday, wherever you pop in. But good luck. Remember to build your fluency so that you will be ready for your puppet show performance. Have fun!